Hi guys, welcome to our video tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about one of the possible funding options for startups. As a startup, you need money to grow, so most of you need funding. One of the most common ways to get funding is selling your shares for equity. If you look at a company, all shareholders are owners of that company. If you have 100% of the shares, you own 100% of the company. Let's look at an example. Let's say you have a startup called JADApp, and it needs $200K. You can get it by giving away shares. Let's say you agree to give 10% of your company for $200K. What does that mean for your valuation? What is your company worth? $2 million, of course, because if 10% equals $200K, then the company must be worth $2 million post-money. There's not much to explain there. Everyone knows how this works. It seems like the most straightforward way to find funding for your startup. But there's a catch. The thing is, how did we know that's the right value? How did we decide that JADApp is worth $2 million? We always ask early-stage startups the following questions. What are you worth? Or what do you think is your valuation? The answer we usually get is, I don't know, or I have no clue. I mean, how do you know? For very early-stage startups with little or no track record, or even without some sort of validation of the product, it is nearly impossible to calculate a valuation using hard data. Even when your startup has a couple of paying customers and has been in operation for a year, there are still so many assumptions to be made about where the business might go. You don't really know what your company is worth. Nobody else does either. At Leap Funder, we call this the valuation conundrum. Shares are a nice and simple way of funding a startup, but it means you need a valuation. You may wonder why it's so important to get the valuation right. Why is it not enough to estimate a very rough valuation? Let's talk about why positioning yourself with a wrong valuation can be highly damaging. If you think JADApp is worth $10 million and your potential investor thinks you're worth $400K, there will probably be no deal because your valuations are miles apart. Let's suppose you go with the investor on a $400K valuation in the end. You'll have to give away 50% of your company to get the $200K you need. And you probably don't want to give away 50% of your company so early, so there's no deal. At the same time, if you convince an investor that JADApp is worth $10 million, then you only have to give away 2% of the shares. Now you might think, hey, it's a great deal. I only had to give away 2% of my shares to get my $200K in funding. But here's the thing. Almost all startups need a second funding round and a third funding round. If your current funding round is for $10 million, then the next round needs to be at least the same, $10 million or higher. Otherwise, there is a potentially very big problem. Suppose that JADApp is valued at $5 million at the second funding round. Your initial investors need to take a big write-down on their investment, which was $10 million. In this case, the write-down is 50%. That's called a down round. Now that is not good. A bad relationship with your initial investors is the last thing you want as a startup. They can even potentially block you from having a second funding round, depending on what is determined in the initial conditions. Also, the new investor will see that there is a bad relationship with the current investors, which might not give the potential new investor much confidence in JADApp. That sums up what is called the valuation conundrum. If JADApp is valued too low, there probably won't be a deal. And if JADApp is valued too high, it can be very damaging for future rounds. Getting the right value for early-stage startups is nearly impossible, and it is really important to be careful. And that's the trouble with shares. They are nice and simple, but early-stage startups can't always use them because you would have to make too many assumptions to get the valuation. However, there is a solution for the valuation conundrum. It is called the convertible. To learn about that, watch our convertible movie. We hope you enjoyed this video. Leap on to the next one to fund your brain with new knowledge.